It was a tough start to the homestand for the Lightning. They took the early lead, but couldn't hold on, and it doesn't get easier with the Colorado Avalanche coming to Amalie Arena on Monday. How big is the Nick Paul absence in this Lightning's homestand?
You're Locked On Lightning, your daily podcast on the Tampa Bay Lightning, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome in to Locked On Lightning. Josh Sperber here, thanking all of you for making Locked On Lightning your first listen every day. We're part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. And if your team is the Tampa Bay Lightning, then this is the show for you. Once again, I am Josh Sperber, and today's episode is sponsored by FanDuel. You can start the season with a big return on FanDuel. New customers can place a $5 bet, and you'll get started with $150 in bonus bets if you win your first $5 bet. Visit FanDuel.com to get started. And let's get started here by talking about the Lightning's last loss against the Dallas Stars. It did start off well, though, for the Tampa Bay Lightning. They did score two of the first three goals, but both of those goals came from Anthony Cirelli, and both of them came in the third period. Cirelli was well complimented by really all of the players and especially his coaches after that game, getting two key goals for the Tampa Bay Lightning. But the two early goals in the third period really did the Lightning in. And John Cooper recalled a specific moment leading up to that first goal that the Stars scored in the third that caused problems for the Tampa Bay Lightning.
One team tried to make 6 passes and put a puck in the net, turned it over, and the other team made 2 passes and threw it in the net. And so one team waited for another team to make a mistake. They did, and the other team capitalized on it, and that was it. So we blinked first, and we lost.
And the mistakes that John Cooper was referring to was some just giveaways in the defensive end, especially with the Lightning giving away 16 pucks to 3 takeaways against the Dallas Stars. Though one thing that I did like about this game was the hits. 31 hits to the Stars 10, and the Lightning as a whole have not been the most physical team on the ice so far this season. The last couple of games, though, they've been starting to up their physicality. They've been starting to add more hits. They've really been starting to use their bodies to get into the other opponent's heads and try and get a bit of an edge. And this is exactly what happened. Early and often, the Lightning were pushing the puck towards the net. They were making hits, and they were making plays. But the offense kind of petered out towards the end of the game, and then the Lightning defense ended up making mistakes. But the offense was still good. Cirelli with 2 goals, career best 5-game goal streak in which he scored 6 goals and had 8 points over that. And it is also tied for the longest among NHL players this season with Sam Reinhart and Sam Bennett, as well as the great 8 in Alex Ovechkin. He's also got points in 8 of his last 10 games, 21 seasons for Cirelli, with the goals really coming as of late in his 6th multi-point game. And Cirelli was someone who was definitely asked to step up in the absence of Nick Paul. I believe he absolutely did that. That's certainly something that we can talk about in the next segment. Nick Paul has been out for the last couple of games and is not expected to play against the Colorado Avalanche later tonight. But the Lightning are still having some of their offensive players just step up in the stead of guys like Nick Paul, and Brandon Hagel is another guy who has been doing that. A rare moment that Nikita Kucherov didn't end up getting a point, and that was something that Dallas just did really well. That first line, particularly on offense for the Tampa Bay Lightning, because Moser and Hedman were still on the ice when the Bolts got one of their goals. It just really seemed like Kucherov, Point, and Gensel, for the most part, were just taken out of the game. That's not something that any team has been able to do before. But it's something that, you got to be concerned with if you're a Lightning fan, because those are your key offensive producers. You look at the Lightning points list Cirelli and Hagel's recent show of form has them above Gensel and Point, but that's still, that first line is still three of the top six guys on the Lightning team in terms of scoring points. And Point is only a couple behind with 4 games fewer played than Hagel and Cirelli. So that is a factor as well. But the fact is, regardless of what the stats look like, your key point producers for the Lightning are going to be that first line. I expect top 3 in points by the end of the season to be Point, Kucherov, and Gensel, though not in that order. I think Kucherov is going to be the one that ends up with the most points. But when the focal points of your offense are shut down, that is a problem. I mean, this was just a matter of the Lightning making a couple mistakes and the Stars capitalizing on them. And that's basically what happened. That's more or less what John Cooper said, and that's most of what we got from Anthony Cirelli and Ryan McDonough after the game anyway, because that's what it was. It came down to a couple mistakes that Dallas capitalized on and the Lightning didn't. But they certainly started off really well, and that has been the MO for the last couple of games at home, which is good for the Lightning because those last couple of games have been against some of the best teams in the NHL right now. You know, you look at the game against the Jets and the Devils where the Lightning combined for an 8-1 victory. They started off really strong in those games, and a lackluster start against Pittsburgh almost proved futile, and the defense just didn't do enough against Columbus. The goals came, just the defense allowed one too many. Well, probably 3 or 4 too many, but that's a whole different thing. It's not the best way the Lightning have to start a homestand, but it's a game that they certainly could have won. But something else that the players and Coach John Cooper talked about was the overpassing of the Tampa Bay Lightning, which I know I brought up to you guys during the show. And that is something that has really, really proved costly in the last couple of games. Against the Devils, it obviously didn't prove as costly as it did, but regardless of the fact that Markstrom stood on his head in that game, and the Lightning ended up with 4 goals anyway, there were still more that could have been scored because of those extra passing. And honestly, if I really look back through the game film of every game this season, I could find at least 1 goal per game that could have been prevented without the Lightning making too many extra passes. I mean, I'm a big fan when it comes to sports like hockey or lacrosse or soccer. You want to pass as much as possible. The ball's always going to move faster than the player. And to get more guys involved, more guys are going to have to touch the ball. Then they can see what you can do with it off the ball, or in this case, the puck. And, you know, the Lightning do pass the ball very well. Just sometimes they're a bit hesitant and think that there might be just an inch more open shot for the next guy. It was certainly the case. Kucherov and Gensel have been able to do that. They also missed a couple of really good chances in the first minute of the second period, which was just the goalie battle. That was another key moment in this game. Just Vasilevsky versus Ettinger. They are both in the top 5 in goals allowed average and save percentage so far this season. And both 2 names that I expect to be on the lips of voters when it comes to the Vezina Trophy at the end of the season. Just in this one, the Lightning made more mistakes than the Stars, and Ettinger outdueled Vasilevsky. It was certainly a close one, though. Lightning with 1 more shot, but Ettinger with a couple more saves. 24 of 28 stopped by Andrei Vasilevsky. And the Stars came up with 26 saves from Ettinger. And the Lightning have a tough homestand coming up. One of their next 5 games will be on the road. That is Friday's matchup against Nashville. This week, they're facing 3 teams in playoff position. The Avalanche, who they've beaten already, the Capitals, who they've beaten already, and the Maple Leafs at home after the Predators on the road. The Maple Leafs are the only one of those 4 teams the Lightning have lost to so far this season. And then they play the San Jose Sharks to start November. Nick Paul has been a key player, mainly on the Lightning's second line, but he has missed the last couple of games with an apparent lower body injury. We'll talk about his impact and what it's meant to the team since he has been out when we return here on Locked On Lightning. Get ready to tackle the NFL action and NHL action with FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. Because right now, new customers can bet $5 and get $150 in bonus bets if you win. You got to win that first bet, though. But the FanDuel Sportsbook app gives you everything you need to place live bets on the NFL all in one place. So when you get in the middle of the game, you get a hunch, you can check out latest stats, view live play-by-play, and so much more on the same page where you place your bets. Just visit FanDuel.com to join today, and you'll get started with $150 in bonus bets if you win your first $5 bet. That's FanDuel.com, so never waste a hunch and make every moment more with FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. Nick Paul was an injury scratch ahead of the Lightning's game against Dallas this season. He has 13 points, a plus-minus of +2, 5 goals and 8 assists, 2 of those goals winning the games, and has made 20% of his shots while winning faceoffs at a 46% clip. He has been out the last couple of games, and it really seems like the Lightning felt it. Paul is really just a glue guy on that Lightning team. He has been on every line between 1 and 3 at one point this season, and is just a really good team player to have. I mean, he's someone that has played most of his career on the Lightning after getting drafted by Dallas and then traded to Ottawa in the second half of his career. He has played now the last 4 seasons, 3 full, after getting dealt to the Lightning during the trade deadline by the Ottawa Senators. And that has certainly looked like it has come out in the Lightning's favor. The former 4th round pick from Canada has been an impact player for the Lightning this season. 171 points in 427 career games, with 13 and 17 games so far this year. Now, Nick Paul is definitely someone who can provide some intangibles, just some extra toughness, and a guy who is just well liked by the Lightning team. And having a guy that pretty much everyone has solid chemistry with can only be helpful, I think, for the Tampa Bay Lightning. And I think it's pretty easy to see what the Lightning have missed without Paul in there. Just some extra physicality in the forward spot, and a guy who is always there to help create chances, whether or not he gets on the board with a goal or an assist or anything. Nick Paul is really seemed to be involved in most of the Lightning scoring chances over the course of this season, whether it's the first pass, whether it's a takeaway, whether it's making a hit on somebody to cause a turnover and give the Lightning back the puck. He's just a puck hound. That is something that Nick Paul does really well. And Tampa is really going to have to, step up and make some changes. One change that John Cooper has employed frequently this season because of injured players has been going with 11 forwards and 7 defenders, as opposed to the traditional 12 and 6. That's something that we discussed plenty last week, and I think it's still worth the discussion today, because you look at that, it's usually Darren Radish, who is the 7th defender, kind of plays as a hybrid in between a forward and defender position. When you look at guys who the Lightning are going to need more from, it's going to be Radish. And there have certainly been some games where Radish has stepped up. He certainly isn't filling up the stat sheet by any means, but he's getting himself on the board when the Lightning need it. Radish, a goal and 4 assists in 10 games, while averaging around 15 minutes on the ice. So in limited action, in limited shifts, Darren Radish has been able to help put the puck in the net. And he's someone that I think the Lightning might be relying on a lot more, especially with Cam Atkinson scratched as well from Saturday's game. He is Radish really turns into a key player, not just swapping with Perbix on the 3rd defensive line, but also in that 7th defender role, where he's really essentially used as a right wing on the last line of forwards, and it's worked well. I think it's added that extra physicality that the Lightning have really been lacking for the most part this season. And Radish is still adept enough to help with the offense, but you got to look at like Anthony Cirelli last night, a perfect example. He was really just chasing down pucks and getting himself into a position to create a scoring chance as much as he possibly could. And he really did a good job of filling in for Nick Paul. I think that the Lightning also could look again to their AHL team in the Syracuse Crunch. Um, they've already been bringing Gage Gonzalez up and down from that, which, by the way, he was in the game a bit earlier than we'd typically seen him. He was on the first or second shift for the Tampa Bay Lightning in the first period. And I like to see that, because when an injured player goes out, it creates an opportunity for younger guys like Gonzalez to start fighting for roster spots and see if they can earn themselves a consistent place on the Lightning roster. And Gonzalez has certainly started to do that. He led the Crunch in points last season in the AHL. This year he has 6 assists in 5 games, but has played most of the season with Tampa Bay. And I think there are still some candidates on the Syracuse Crunch that could come in that forward line. Dylan Duke has really been impressive, and Nico Huhtinen is someone who has been kind of up and down. He's shown flashes that he can be a great offensive player. And there are certainly guys to look to when it comes to the AHL, but I think for the most part, the 11-7 has been working for John Cooper and for the Lightning. And Anthony Cirelli did acknowledge that the Bolts certainly did some things well, but was upset during the loss without Nick Paul back on Saturday.
We're better tonight. Still not good enough, obviously. There were spurts there in that game that I thought we were on our game and we were playing well, and we're doing the right things, and something we weren't. So that's on us to be able to go out there and do what we got to do for full 60.
And that has been a recurring theme for the Tampa Bay Lightning. They have not played a whole lot of games where it has been all Lightning, all 60 minutes. They're obviously, that game against the Devils comes to mind as one of those games where they played a complete 60 minutes. And you can take a handful of games from the Lightning season and show that they played the full 60 and show that they played up to their full potential really for the entire game. Just the game against Dallas was not one of them. I think that Nick Paul really can help with Lightning's consistency. His offense has already improved this season. He's on track for more goals and helpers than he's had in the last couple seasons with the Tampa Bay Lightning. But just getting those regular players into more games is what the Lightning need. I think the Lightning are just going through a period where it's not, the injuries for the most part haven't been devastating, but they have just hit at tough points in the Lightning schedule, and they have just gotten to players who just do a lot of the little things, some of the things that you're not going to notice in the stat sheet on a nightly basis, but when you don't see them there, you notice them. And that was certainly the case. I think some of that toughness that Nick Paul provides was certainly lacking against the Dallas Stars, and Dallas made him pay for it. The Lightning certainly made some mistakes, and Dallas was able to capitalize on them. And a couple of mistakes that the Stars made, namely the penalties, the Lightning weren't able to do the same. Nick Paul has been on that second power play unit at times, but now it's just time for the Lightning players to step up. It doesn't seem like the Bolts are, at this point in the season anyway, going too deep into their prospect pool too early on. Gage Gonzalez was certainly one of the more refined prospects that the Lightning have, and they already felt that he was ready to contribute in that third and fourth line. So they brought him up. I mean, it really seems like the Lightning are just going to kind of play with the roster that they have at this point. I think once the trade deadline gets closer, once the All-Star break gets closer, the Bolts might be a team that's looking to shop. Maybe they'll be selling off some of their players, hopefully not, but they might be looking for a couple more guys to add some forward depth, and I think that can certainly help. I'd like to see the Lightning stick with what they have for right now. If Atkinson's injury struggles have completely dissipated, then he can get back in the game and be used a little more. He's coming off a goal against his former team in Columbus. He's someone that I'd like to see in the lineup a bit more. I was honestly kind of surprised to see him out of the lineup. He could have just slotted right in at right wing for Nick Paul, but the 11-7 has been working for the Lightning, so I really expect them to do more of that, and that means keep most of their guys in the NHL as the ones they're calling to get the extra playing time, to get the extra minutes, to get the extra chances that the Lightning hope Nick Paul does not lapse on in his injury absence. There's been no additional news about Paul's injury. He is just out indefinitely. So hopefully he can come back soon because the Bolts certainly need him. They would need him for the Colorado Avalanche game as well. And for the second time this season, the Lightning will take on the Colorado Avalanche, with the other game in Colorado towards the end of the month of October. We're going to break down that game as we preview Lightning and Avalanche right after these messages from our sponsors. Prize Picks is the best way to get real money sports action. With over 10 million members and billions of dollars in awarded winnings, Prize Picks have made daily fantasy sports accessible to all. You just pick more or less on at least 2 players for a shot to win up to 100 times your cash. Run your game all season long on Prize Picks. And you can now win up to 100 times your money on Prize Picks with as little as 4 correct picks. And Prize Picks is the best way to get action on sports in over 30 states, including the great state of Florida. And you can sign up today and get $50 instantly when you play just $5. You don't even need to win to receive the $50 bonus. It's guaranteed with your first $5 bet. Prize Picks also offers weekly promotions that can lead to big payouts like Taco Tuesday. Each Tuesday, Prize Picks discounts select player projections up to 25% to provide even more value for your lineup. So download the Lightning app today, or the Prize Picks app today, and use the code LOCKEDONNHL to get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. Make sure to download the Prize Picks app today. Use the code LOCKEDONNHL to get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. Prize Picks, run your game. We are back here on Locked On Lightning as the Bolts prepare for what they hope is going to seal a sweep of the Colorado Avalanche. A 5-2 victory in Denver for Andrei Vasilevskiy and the Bolts, the last time these two teams faced. And now tonight at 7 p.m., they will be going off again. Connor Geekie got a goal in the last game. Braden Point with 2 assists, as well as Brandon Hagel. 2 goals from Gensel, a goal and an apple from Cirelli, a goal and 2 assists from Nikita Kucherov. Nick Paul did not get on the score sheet against Colorado in a game that the Lightning were outshot 35-21. But he did have a +1 margin in that goal. The Lightning, I mean, this is a game that I think the Lightning can win. This is a team that the Lightning have already beaten, but I think it's a case of 2 very different Avalanche teams. Colorado was struggling at the start of the season, and now it seems like they've gotten their rhythm back, but they're still 4-5-1 over their last 10. The Lightning are 4-4-2 over their last 10. So it's a pretty pivotal game for both of them. I mean, right now, Colorado is in maybe the best division in the league. I mean, you have 2 teams that could have an argument for the best in the league, and the 2 teams with the most points in the Western Conference at the top of the Western Conference Central Division, the Jets and the Wild at 17-4 and 13-3-4. The Stars are in third. The Avalanche have played 2 more games than Dallas, and they trail the Stars by 2 points for that third place spot in the Western Conference. And this is going to be a battle. I think the Nathan MacKinnon, Nikita Kucherov rivalry has been inflated by fans of both teams, and I think it's really created an edge between 2 guys. And as you could have seen in the last game the Lightning played Colorado, it raised Kucherov's game. He had a goal and an assist against the Avalanche, while MacKinnon had 2 assists. So MacKinnon assisted on both the Avs goals. Nikita Kucherov had a goal and 2 assists, outplaying MacKinnon, and that being a big difference in the Lightning's victory. So that, I think, is going to be the first key for me, is that matchup. You know, you have 2 of the best players in the NHL, 2 guys that are going to be challenging for the Hart Trophy and the Art Ross Trophy this year and in the foreseeable future. I mean, I really don't know too many other guys that are on that level of Nathan MacKinnon and Nikita Kucherov. So I think that matchup is going to be key. And as it usually happens when you have the star power like that, the winner of that kind of matchup is going to win the game. And that I can certainly see, as it did happen between the Lightning and the Avalanche last time these two teams have played. Now, even though the Avalanche outshot the Lightning in the last victory, I think that's something that the Lightning are going to want to do more of. Vasilevsky might be back in the net again. One of these games during his homestand, I feel like Johansson's going to come in just to get Vasi some rest. The Lightning do have 4 games in the next 5 days this week, with 3 of them at home. So the lesson travel is still good, but one of these games, Vasilevsky is probably going to be rested. And it might be tonight's game against the Avalanche. We don't know that yet, but as good as Vasilevsky is, regardless of who's in the net, you can't just play defense expecting the goalie to get you. Does Vasilevsky get that most of the time? Get his teammates most of the time? Yes, he absolutely does. But the Lightning, as an offensive team, in every game, they need to work on getting more shots than the opponent. They need to work on getting more chances on net than the opponent, because the Lightning are rarely going to beat you in a game that turns into a defensive showdown. And with that Columbus game being an exception, if it's a shootout, I bet on the Lightning as opposed to any other team in the league in just a shootout, offensive firepower focused win, because that's the Lightning's game. That is what they do best. They're one of the best teams in the league in terms of goal production, and they can put pucks in net just about every game. It's been rare to see them shut out this season, and the Avalanche certainly have the chance to do that, but it is just going to be a taller order for the Light. I mean, it's just going to be a taller order for the Avalanche just because there's so much. The power play is also something that needs to be fixed. Avalanche did have 4 power plays against the Lightning. They got 1 of their goals on them. That was something that the Lightning talked about as a big part of their success in most of the games that they have won, but also a part of their downfall in games like Saturday's loss to Dallas.
They defended well, and maybe that's an us a bit, not getting enough pucks to the net, some scrambles there to kind of break that down. But like I said, they did a good job. Really played well. Kind of waited there for who made a mistake there, and like I said, they capitalized.
Obviously, that wasn't the only part of the Dallas game that messed up. Cirelli did go on to say that there were some good chances on a couple of penalties. Did solid on the penalty kill for the most part, but there's still room for an improvement. And as is really the case for all the Lightning's game, they had a day off on Sunday to just get themselves rested and relaxed for a nice little morning skate before their game against the Avalanche. But I think that the Lightning are going to need to do better on special teams. They were 0 for 3 on the power play in Colorado. They did win most of the faceoffs. They were out hit 2-1, 24-12, but you get the idea. And they had double the amount of giveaways that the Avalanche did. Still ended up getting the victory in the game, though. So the Lightning do have to improve on special teams. I think, though, a game that the Lightning outshoot Colorado, who, by the way, the Bolts have scored at least once in every period against so far this season. That is a definite possibility. And, this is a team that does have talent on both the offense and the defensive side. You've got 2 guys arguably at the top of their position in McKinnon and Maker. So those are 2 people that you have to watch out for. But I mean, the amount of weapons the Avalanche have, the Lightning can match those, pound for pound. I'll raise you a Victor Hedman to a Cale Maker, and would more people say Maker's the better defenseman than Victor Hedman this year? Maybe, but that doesn't mean Hedman isn't on that same kind of elite level that Maker absolutely is. And between Kucherov and McKinnon is pretty much a toss-up. I mean, these are, in my opinion, the 2 Hart favorites this year. I think they're 2 players that their team's success lives and dies with them. And I think that both of them will be looking to make an impact in the last time these 2 teams face each other in the regular season. But it could come down to the superstars between the Avalanche and the Tampa Bay Lightning. I am going to predict a Lightning victory. I'm going to say McKinnon is going to get a goal, but the Lightning will score the final 3 and take a 3-1 win at home against the Colorado Avalanche. If you guys have comments, picks, send them our way. Make sure to go into the comments section, or you can DM me at my X account at Josh_Sperber. But I am going to sign off for today. First, I'll thank all of you for making Locked On Lightning your first listen today. For your second listen, make sure to find Locked On Fantasy Hockey. Become a fantasy hockey expert and get the edge over your league mates with daily tips from Steele and Flint. Find Locked On Fantasy Hockey on YouTube or wherever you listen to your podcasts. And if you're on YouTube, make sure to give us a subscription, a like, and give us a like and a follow if you're listening to your podcast on Apple or Spotify or anywhere else. We just appreciate the support. We thrive on fan support, and we appreciate you guys, the fans, for listening and liking and supporting our show. So thank you guys again. Hope you guys enjoy the start of your Thanksgiving week. Let's have a great Monday and go Bolts.